Teaching of English. The following are the expected learning outcomes. At the end of this video, viewers should be able to, first, define the term direct method of language teaching. Secondly, list 5 merits and 5 demerits of the direct method of language teaching, and discuss 4 principles of the direct method of language teaching. Let's start with the definition of teaching method. So let's ask the question, what is a teaching method? When we talk about teaching method, this comprises the principles and techniques, or what we call strategies, used by teachers to facilitate learners' learning. These strategies are determined partly on the subject matter to be taught and partly by the nature of the learner. What that means is that if we are taking English language, the subject will determine, and in English, the component we are taking at a point in time will also determine the kind of method we are to use. If it's a reading comprehension passage or a summary passage, if the focus is on vocabulary, then that will determine the kind. If it's an oral aspect, it will determine the kind of methodology to pick. Also, the nature of the students. If the students are fast learners, if they are slow learners, if they are just intermediate learners, all of this will be put into account before we pick our method. In this video, you shall learn just one of those methods, that is the direct method of language teaching. This method involves using the target language, that is the second language usually in most countries. Students would have acquired a particular language which we call the mother tongue. The other language, which is the target language, in this case English language, is usually the second language. At times, English in some countries has become the first language. So throughout the lesson, if the child must learn the second language, you will not code mix as a teacher. The only language you speak will be the target language. If it's English, you speak purely English to the student. If it is Arabic, if it is French, just that language alone. This could be used, as it has been discussed, for foreign languages majorly, such as English, Arabic, French, and some other art subjects, such as we do in Islamic studies, while teaching the Arabic content in Islamic studies. To take this direct method further, it was developed in the 19th century. The direct method was aimed at aiding child language learning without any help of the mother tongue, no code mixing. This method is also known as the natural method. Another name for the direct method is the natural method. It focuses on the development of the oral skills. Mark that, the oral skills, as it releases students from the inhibition all too often associated with speaking a foreign language, particularly at the early stages. Nonetheless, the method disfavored the use of the learner's native language in the classroom, where occasional use of the mother tongue would have actually enhanced the learning of the target language. Next is the nature of the direct method of language teaching. It's, since the mother tongue is not allowed, translation into any other language is disallowed. So students are not going to be, no part of the construction sentences, maybe in terms of structure or vocabularies, no part will be translated to the mother tongue. You show the students, you ask what is this, if they don't know, you tell them, and that'll be all. Oral drills assist learners in mastering the communication skills of listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Similarly, grammar is taught in natural context, that is, based on the situation at hand. The direct method teaching techniques. For the teacher who is going to use the direct method of language teaching, these are the kind of things you will be doing if you are using the direct method of language teaching. The first is oral questioning and answers. So the exercises majorly you will be engaging in will be oral. You ask verbally, and the answers will be given verbally. Secondly, Dictation is given often through a grade-appropriate passage read aloud by the teacher. Reading aloud, that's the third one. The student takes turn reading sections of a passage. They take turns in play. They practice through dialogue, and all of these are done aloud. Next is the student self-correction. When a student makes a mistake, the teacher offers him or her a second chance by giving a choice. There's also conversation practice as well as paragraph writing. In paragraph writing, the students are asked to write the passage in their own words. All of this, it's important. After taking all of this, it's important to know the strengths as well as the weaknesses of the direct method. The merits, that's the strength of the direct method. One, it enhances fluency. You will see that students who are taught using this method will have the skill of speaking the target language fluently. That does not mean if they are shown on paper, they will likely be able to read fluently. But to speak, wow, that's fantastic. Secondly, understanding of the target language becomes easy because for the reason that it's spoken to them, they hear it, they memorize those vocabularies, those structures are memorized, and they speak it back in a very natural way. Thirdly, the natural oral language skills of listening and speaking are actively developed to the detriment of the artificial literacy language skills of reading and writing. That's very important to note. Since we know that in the communication skills, we have the listening and the speaking, which forms the oracy skills, the reading and writing from the literacy skill. So the oracy skill is often developed quicker. Also, passive vocabularies are put into active use. What we call passive vocabularies are vocabularies that the learner has acquired. He has learnt them or acquired them somehow, but is quite often not using them. For the direct method, those kind of vocabularies are actively being used, so they are turned into active vocabularies. This kind, one of the merits of this kind of method is that it bridges the gap between practice and theory. So when you ask students to, you should be able to, at the end of this class, students should be able to, maybe at the end of the session, the students should be able to construct simple sentences by using them orally. This particular method will enhance that. Students' participation is also promoted as they are always alert to every utterance made by the teacher, by the instructor, as well as from other students. One major weakness or demerit of this direct method is that only trained and qualified teachers can handle the direct method of language teaching. Otherwise, it will be poorly handled. Therefore, the teacher must be qualified to teach English language. Not just anybody will come into the classroom now to handle the direct method. That could be disastrous at the end of the day. So the teacher is qualified and is trained. Secondly, less suitable for slow learners. When you know that your students, the category of students, if you are to take them using this method, they should be fast learners. If you are with slow learners, we shall take the kind of method you're likely to use effectively that will work for them. This method is time consuming. The teacher is actively involved. The students are also actively involved. So it's because of the interaction, it is time consuming. Grammar is not taught systematically. It is taught based on, it's what we call rote learning, routine. It's just taught. The teacher felt that this is what the students need at this moment. He emphasizes that, and that will be all. Visual resources are not very useful here. For the other one, one of the merits of this method is that the audio visual is quite often used. Students are shown the pictures based on the vocabularies being given. If you want to a child to know the meaning of a pen, then when you say this is a pen, you can't get me a pen, you have to show a pen to the child. If it's a cup, if it's whatever, if it's a fridge, you should show the picture of a fridge to the child and make the child know how to pronounce such words and use this in sentences. So, but if quite often we make use of audiovisual, the teacher being a resource person himself, or can bring integrated resources into the classroom, like the computer or the TV set, that can speak at the same time as well as transmit visual materials. But for visual, just visual, they are not very useful here. The principles of the direct method. It's important that learners should know that to apply this the direct method while teaching, note the following. The classroom instruction is conducted exclusively in the target language. Secondly, only everyday vocabulary and sentences are taught during the initial phase. Grammar, reading and writing are introduced in the intermediate phase. Next is that oral communication skills are built up in a carefully graded progression, organized around question and answer exchanges between teachers and students in small intensive classes. As has been said earlier, grammar is taught inductively, not intuitively. New teaching points are introduced orally. Next is practice questions. By now, you would have learned the definition of direct method. Therefore, you are asked now to define the term direct method of language teaching. Secondly, you have to list 5 merits of the direct method of language teaching. Thirdly, itemize 5 merits of the method of language teaching. And lastly, you have to discuss 4 principles of the direct method of language teaching. Thank you for viewing with rapt attention. See you some other time.